Strike Eagle 1-6 is, in my opinion, one of the best budget 1-6 scopes that you can get out there. The reason I'm making this video is because it's time to retire this bad boy. I'm about to sell it after about 3 hard years of running this thing on all sorts of AR-15s over the years, and it has been a great optic. It definitely is budget in some ways, but it well exceeds its price in other ways.
Let's go over some of the features real quick. It is coming in, it says MSRP of $500. They're typically running on sale at like $300 ish. You can check. Palmetto State usually has good deals on them around that price, as well as Optics Planet sometimes does some sales on their OPMOD version of this, which is the one featured in this video, for around that $350 price. It's got a 24mm objective lens. It's got that BDC reticle. The turrets, they're low cap turrets. Honestly, on an LPVO, I'm not really doing any sort of dialing, so I wasn't really worried about the turrets. It just helps with zeroing it initially, but then after that, I mean, I'm using a BDC reticle. I'm not using ranging. It's a 30mm tube, so pretty much most mounts it'll work with. Most of them are 30mm. Half MOA adjustments. Yeah, it's got parallax, which is great. Fixed at 100 yards, which, it doesn't have an adjustable parallax. It's fixed. That is pretty typical of LPVOs because you're not getting up to a high enough magnification where you need parallax. Maximum blah blah blah. Field of views 116 to 119 feet at 100 yards. It's got pretty good field of view. Eye relief 3.5 inches. It's got pretty good eye relief. The eye box is not great side to side, I will say that. It's okay, but not great. But it is a fairly forgiving LPVO, especially in the budget categories. However, on 6X, it is not forgiving. So, but, you know, typically in a 6X situation, you're having time to settle in and get your head in a position where it needs to be. But on 1X, very forgiving. 6X, not forgiving. Length 10.5 inches, which is like a metric ton of length. The Empire State Building is not that high. And then, like we talked about earlier, 18.5 ounces, pretty beefy, especially when you include one of their mounts.
It is a 1-6, as we talked about, LPVO, meaning it goes from a low power variable optic. So it starts off at a 1X and goes all the way up to 6X, giving you that full range of power. Most people's use case for that is they like the 1X to be used similar to like a red dot, and then they also want the additional capability of reaching out to distance with a 6X. The reason for that is that people were lacking capability from previous iterations of what was available out there. Many people have been running red dots and EOTechs, and they were seeing issues with not being able to hit distance shots because they can't see what's going on, or not being able to have PID, positive ID, on target. And so that's kind of where the LPVO came from. Now, what the Strike Eagle does well about this is on its 1X, it actually does pretty well. It's not a true 1X. You're never, especially on these budget optics, you're never really going to feel like it's ever 100%. 1X is like a red dot, but it does do a pretty good job. The main draw for me on this optic that sets it apart from others is actually the glass quality at the 1X level, as well as the reticle. The glass quality at 1X on this is very good. It really, I've used it in like environments, like I've airsofted with this actually. I've identified targets and everything. This actually has very good color and light transmission I would say, versus other optics in the same category. We're talking the Swamp Foxes that I've looked through, and I haven't used those extensively, but I've looked through them at targets, and then also the SIG Tango 1-6. I would say that this is definitely a much better optic than that. I've ran that a little bit, and from what I can tell, and in that category, there's a lot of manufacturers that tend to want to give you glass quality at 6x but stuck at the 1x, and in my opinion, the 6x is kind of the luxury added capability that you need when you need to hit something at distance. But for an LPVO to be good, it has to have a really good 1x for my use case. Like, I want to be able to run and gun at a 1x with this. And with the horseshoe reticle on this, you are able to accomplish that. It has that middle dot and then the horseshoe ring. So up close, if you were to use that, you just put the horseshoe on somebody. It's similar to like an EOTech design, where you just put the ring of death on somebody and they're dead. And then what I do like too is that middle dot, I believe is either 1 or 2 MOA. I'll put it up here, but it's a very crisp little center dot. I would say 1 MOA, but it's a crisp little dot, and you're able to just put that on target when you want to be more precise, and especially when you're shooting longer ranges, that helps out a lot. So let's get into the long range performance of this. So the 6X is decent with this. My favorite part of the 6X, or I guess of the reticle design on 6X, is that one, it's a BDC, meaning it's a bullet drop compensating reticle. So your center dot is meant to be zeroed at 50 and confirmed at 200 yards. Each preceding dash underneath that is the next 100 yards. So you got dot at 200, first dash, 300, 400, 500, 600. Now, is that ever the case for any BDC? Not really. You kind of have to, what I would suggest if you were to try to use this, confirm it yourself, go out and actually shoot them. I was using another BDC earlier this week, or actually it was last week, and the hash that was supposed to be the 300 yard was actually hitting pretty high still, like a good foot above the target at 350 yards. So at 300 yards, or at 350 yards, it was still hitting high. So for that hash, I needed to bring it back down to about what would be about 250 yard-ish on the BDC. That's where I had to aim to hit the target at 350 yards. So they're all different. You kind of have to shoot and confirm that. But if this is like your set optic and you're dedicated to learning the holds, and it totally depends on your ammo type. I believe that this is set for a 55 grain, if I remember right, but I haven't seen that to be 100% accurate even with 55 grain, and not all 55 grain is created the same. Some of them are designed for a certain load. So I would just kind of shoot this and find out what you like. But anyway, on the reticle, what I really like about it is the illumination. So the illumination doesn't illuminate the Christmas tree, which I found very helpful, because honestly, if you're shooting this up close, you don't need the Christmas tree illuminated. If you're shooting it at long distance, you also don't need the Christmas tree illuminated. It's not very helpful if you're shooting long distance to have that super bright. But when you do need the illumination is up close using it like a red dot, in my opinion. And that's actually what I like about this. I know on some optics, I believe some Swamp Fox optics, they do the Christmas tree lit up, which I do not think is helpful at all, and would get pretty busy. So I think Vortex did a really good job of this. Now, compared to side by side with my Vortex Razor that I've been running for a while, you can definitely tell a glass quality difference. And I was praising the glass earlier, but it's still Chinese glass versus Japanese glass. There's a big difference if you didn't know that. There's also a huge price difference. This optic when I bought it, came in at about $300. The Razer Gen 2E, I believe, you can find it on Euro Optic for about like $1,400. So there's a big difference there. You know, is it worth the 5 times the cost to get the value? That's up to you. You'll have to just try that out on your own and just see. But in my opinion, if you are in the budget market, I really would suggest something like this. It's super durable, it's very strong and beefy, and with that comes one negative with this scope. This scope does weigh a lot. I will post the numbers up here, but it's definitely one of the heftier scopes, and that's kind of something that Vortex has struggled with in general. If you look at something like Primary Arms, they tend to take some of the good design choices from Vortex and they cut weight, which I think is pretty important because this optic, due to its size, this thing is actually huge. Due to its size, it sits out pretty far on your gun, so not only is it heavier, but it's longer, and it sits out far, and so when the more weight that you put away from your body, the actually heavier it feels versus like weight further back. So one of the cool parts about like the ACOG is not only is it a fairly lightweight and durable optic, it sits super far back. So you have it, the weight balance is nice and far back. But on this, you have to have it right here and it goes all the way to there on your gun, which comes out to be about where almost over the handguard is where this goes. So, and depending on where you run it, it could be over the handguard. Like that is a lot of weight forward on the gun. So that is one thing you're gonna get in Vortex budget optics and Vortex optics in general. They're kind of overbuilt and durable, but they're also heavy. I mean, look at their whole Razer line. Even like they tend to be much heavier scopes. So that is a negative thing about this scope, and I would definitely encourage you, if you were going for the ultimate weight savings, I would probably look into maybe like the Primary Arms if you're in that same category of budget 1 to 6s. But for me, and what I've used, I prefer the reticle as the main point and the durability, and then with that durability, and this can't be overstated, is Vortex's warranty service. They're great. I actually had a Vortex Spark. I come in and like right away the mount just was like broken after like installing it one time. I just came back to my gun. I was like, why is that broken? So the mount, just one of the screws was sheared, but they sent me replacement stuff immediately. They had it like next day aired. So while I wish that it wouldn't have come broken in the first place, I do appreciate the fact that they're willing to immediately go after you and take care of you. They do have lifetime warranty on these things. You could chuck this off a mountain and break it and they'd replace it. With it being the OPMOD version, which just means it's the Optics Planet version of this optic, which I'll have a link in the description to this. I get a small kickback from that, but I don't know that if you did warranty it that they would be able to do the finish. They might just swap it with a regular one if you really beat it up. But with this being an OPMOD version, I don't think they would warranty like the color. And that's all you're getting with the OPMOD. It doesn't change anything internally. They literally just Cerakoted this from what I can tell. And it's a cool color. It's definitely a different shade than the Razer, but it is a cool kind of like almost slate gray tannish. It's definitely faded over time, but it's become more gray. And I think it's a cool finish that Optics Planet put on there, and they added maybe like $25-30 to the price. It really wasn't much. And but no Vortex mount. And then as far as the mount goes, I've been running the Primary Arms platinum mount with this. The Vortex mounts work great. I think it's a good mount. I really like the fact that these tighten down and you can just use a wrench on them or a flathead, which is really nice. I prefer that over a QD system. I think it's less likely to fail, more bomb-proof, and it's nice and well designed. Like aesthetically, it looks not great. I have put probably through this optic and mounts. I've run a couple mounts. I've run the Aero Precision Lightweight and this. I've run probably around 2,500 rounds with this on there. It definitely is an optic that if you're in that budget class, I would suggest it, I recommend it. Now, alternatives to this outside of the LPVO category if you do not have a lot of money. What I would suggest is think a little bit outside the LPVO category if you are on a budget, and I would suggest the Hollow Sun Ames with a magnifier for most people, and here's why. A red dot is going to give you more capability, it's going to be easier to fire, it's going to be everything that you're going to want to do with this, it's going to do it better. And then with their magnifier, you're only getting 3x capability, but the glass on their magnifiers are about the same as this. And so the glass quality, the 6x versus 3x, I don't know. It's up to you. You'll have to run them and find out, but that's only like $400 or $500 to get the versus 300 to get the Ames and the magnifier, and I think that's a better option for a lot of people. Maybe like a home defense setup. Red dot's going to be better, but like if you want to do like a hunting setup, this would probably be a little bit better. And then like I said, the bullet drop compensator is what is probably going to make this a huge draw for a lot of people. So that would be some considerations for you. But yeah, I would definitely suggest do your research. Try before you buy. Go to the store, try them out, look through them. Like I said, if you're in the market for this, good buy. There are also other better-ish options out there for a little bit more money. Just think about that as well. Maybe the end of the world is probably not happening tomorrow. It's probably not happening next year. It's probably not happening in the next 10 years. So you got a lot of time to kind of decide and save up money. But then also, if you just want to pull the trigger on something and get into something, this is a good option. I got no complaints with this other than glass quality, still that Chinese glass, but it's still pretty good. And then maybe like the battery life on the illuminator, but I don't really use the illuminator that often. And then also, last end of this rant, I know this has kind of been all over the place. The reticle is not daylight bright, or what I would consider daylight bright. So using it on the 6, I think it has 6 illuminations. No, it has 11. 11 illuminations. Using it on full power on 11 illumination in the middle of a really bright sunny day, this thing is going to wash out and it's going to look pretty much black. The reticle will. So, I don't know. I wouldn't, if that's a huge sticking point with you, the only LPVO that I've seen that has a daylight bright reticle that is even close to this price is the Vortex PST 1-6. That thing has an excellent daylight bright reticle. However, I will say the reticle on this is a better reticle unless you want to do mil or MOA ranging, in which case I would suggest the PST. It's a great option as well. But yeah, that you're gonna have to learn mil and MOA, which is great to learn and good to know, but you're gonna have to actually learn that and practice that and train that. The ADC is a little bit easier, and especially where I use these on ARs. I would suggest this on an AR. Do I want to have to be doing math while I'm and ranging with my gun on an AR while I'm taking shots at 400 or 500 yards, or do I just want to hit the hash, fire away, and have the mini Christmas tree help me out on windage? It's up to you. So, thanks guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll put a link in the description to the OPMOD version of this, as well as if I see any other sites out there with good deals. You know, sometimes I post links to things that I don't even have affiliate for, but pretty much everything is affiliate. I get a small kickback, so if you want to choose that, go for it. If not, no big deal to me. Have a great rest of your day.